you are a participant of the game of life. So let's talk about how you can play the game of life to actually win it for yourself. So this is what I want to talk with you about in this video. First of all, I want to give you an introduction. What is the game of life? How to play it? What is important? The rules of the game of life, some side notes and a story from Neville Goddard, and also a summary on this whole topic of game of life, how to play it, how to win it. So let's talk about the introduction. And a change of attitude is a change of position on the playing field of life. The game of life is not being played out there in what is called space and time. The real moves in the game of life take place within, on the playing field of the mind, right? The playing field of your inner world, the playing field of your awareness, where you dwell within, your inner states, your inner mood. That is actually where the game of life takes place, which is then, of course, always expressed, reflected back, and mirrored back to you in your 3D external circumstances. But like Neville said, right, the real game of life is not being played out there and, trying to achieve things there. It starts from within. And then, of course, you do things, but it all starts from within, right? This is where the real game of life is taking place, right? The playing field of the mind, of your inner world. So most of us are totally unaware of the mental activity which goes on within us. But to play the game of life successfully, we must become aware of our every mental activity. For this activity, in the form of our inner conversations, is the cause of the outer phenomena of our life. And this is what I always say in a lot of my videos. I say that the first foundation when you approach, manifesting, living more consciously, creating desired circumstances, and changing your life is always self-awareness, right? Awareness on where do you dwell within. Awareness over your current states, your current self-concept, your current identity. That is very important so that you can start to see a connection between, okay, this is who I assume myself to be, and this is how my life looks like. So now let me start to assume something new so that my life looks differently, that I get what I want to get. But like Neville said, right, most people are unaware. They're like this term, right, NPCs. They are like sheeps. They just unconsciously, act on their programming and their conditioning, but they're not even aware of their inner world yet. Right? They don't consciously shift states. They let their outside world dictate who they are, and then they just get more of the same. So to play the game of life successfully, read between the lines. Right? With a lot of things that I say in these videos and when I go over Neville quotes, you need to really read between the lines. To play the game of life successfully, we must become aware of the mental activity, because this inner activity, right, don't take it word by word, but the internal activity, who you say you are, what you are identified with, the moods you dwell in your inner world, what you give yourself first, so to speak, and your inner conversations, right? All of that inner movement, that is the cause of your outer phenomena of your life. So there is no opponent in the game of life. That's first of all, you can relax, right? It's not that in like, I don't know games that much, like computer games, whatever, but it's not that you have this opponent at the next level. The only opponent, right? Your only opponent is you, is your mind, is your conditioning, the states that you keep being identified with, but there is not really an opponent in the game of life. So the game of life, like every game, is played within the framework of certain rules, and any violation of those rules carries a penalty. You and I are playing this game from morning to night, and should therefore learn its rules in order to play it well. Very important, right? If you think that, you are in, the rules are not true for you and you can just do anything, you will fail at the game of life, because these rules that we will talk about right now, they are true for everyone, for every player on this, world stage, so to speak. And everyone needs to follow the same rules when they want to play the game of life consciously and win it for themselves, so to speak. Right, so let me put it this way. The game of life is won by those who compare their thoughts and feelings within to what appears on the outside. Again, the game of life is won by those who compare their thoughts and feelings, their inner states, but what they assume and where they dwell within, to what appears on the outside. And also, again, like Neville said, right, you and I, we're playing this game from morning to night. You can't just, okay, now I stop playing the game of life. As long as you have this experience, you abide by certain rules, so to speak, right? How life, how consciousness, how manifesting, how all of this works. So if you just say, that's not true for me, your life will still outpicture where you dwell within. You can't turn this mechanism off, right? You can't turn this mechanics of your inner world and the external mirror, you can't turn it off. You can only decide to, again, be a pawn on a chessboard and just be this play ball of life, or you can decide to do it to a higher degree more consciously. The game is lost by those who do not recognize this law, right? This connection between their inner world and their outer world. Being consumed by anger, they see no change in their world. But if they would change their mood, right, their circumstances would change, then they would recognize the law behind their world. And that's the key point, right? If they would change their mood, if they would change their attitude, if they would change their self-concept, their identity, if you would do that, your circumstances would change, because that's always the cause. The cause is always within yourself. So what are the rules of this game of life? Now, in order to play the game of life, you must know what you want to replace it with what you have right now. So when you know what it is that you want, right? So the rule basically starts with, you need to know what you want. You need to decide what it is that you want right now, in this moment. Who do you want to be? What do you want to have? And when you know what this is right now, then you must assume the feeling that you have it, right? Although your reason, your rational mind, and your senses will deny its existence, persistence will cause your assumption to harden into fact and objectify itself upon your screen of space. Before I go over the next sentences, let this sink in. Right? When you know what you want right now, so you have this desire that arose within yourself, instead of working out a way on how you can reach it, no. Assume here and now the feeling that you have it. What would it be like? What would it feel like? How would you see the world? And of course, your rational mind can't understand this and will deny that your desire exists. But when you persistently fill up your inner reality, your inner world with that feeling of the wish fulfilled, with that mood, with the state of having what you want to have, of being who you want to be, then this will cause this assumption, right? This still unseen assumption to harden into fact. But what does harden into fact mean? Harden into fact mean that this state already exists, right? And you inwardly, in the unseen, world of creation, so to speak, internally you dwell in that reality, in that state. It's still not seen outside, but this assumption will harden into fact and objectify, aka manifest itself in your external circumstance, because you have dwelled on it within. Play the game this way. You may think it doesn't work, but that's because you have not tried it. So you may believe the idea is stupid, but I tell you, the mood decides your fortune. What I say so often throughout my videos, right? The mood, what is that feeling like? Which states do you dwell within? What is the desired identity? How would it feel the world? What would the feeling be like? Right? To really that mood, your attitudes towards life, your self-concept, your identity, right? That decides your fortune, that decides your circumstances. Believe me, for I've proved this principle over and over again in my life, is what Neville is saying. And I can agree with that, because I really see it also always playing out in my life. I see this for my members of my program. I see this just in the world without. When you kind of like understand these mechanics and you look in the world, you see it's always playing out. People that, always like very, tight and angry, and they react on everything. They always have, sometimes they have like stuff, undesirable circumstances going on, because these moods keep expressing in their life. So basically, let me put my image down here. Basically, rule number 1 is whatever you desire, believe you have received it, and you will. That is the one of the main formulas, one of the main rules. And I will link one of the most powerful videos that I ever done on my channel. I will link this one above right now. It's called Believe You Have Received and You Will, right? This is the secret basically behind manifestation. So after this video, definitely check it out. It's a very important video. Okay. So that's rule number 1. Whatever you desire, no restriction on it. Believe that you have received it and you will. So you first need to give it to yourself, right? You first need to embody within that state, and then you will, as a result, see that change in a time frame, so to speak, right? First believe you already have received it, then you will. Rule number 2, do not be concerned as to how it is going to happen. Something that so many people get hung up on is like, okay, but how? What should I do? What's my next step? I see no progress. I see no movement. I made an entire deep dive video on the how and why this should be not your concern. I will also link this one above right now so that you learn this rule even better. Right? Do not be concerned as to how it's going to happen. Once you assume the end state and you dwell in it, you can't determine the how of the unfolding, because that is coming from a from your true self, from a deeper power in you that you can't consciously cross, you can't consciously understand. Simply let the bridge unfold and be moved along the way from the end state that will lead you, but you don't need to determine any ways. And also rule number 3, oftentimes forgotten, do unto others that which you would have them do unto you. Meaning, don't wish harmful things, don't wish negative things for others, because first of all, that's stupid if you realize that we are all connected, we are all sharing. At the deepest level, we all share the same beingness, the same awareness, the same consciousness, the same source, the same I am. We are all one, but just in this three-dimensional world reflected in different, viewpoints, but we are deep down all one. So it doesn't make any sense to wish something bad to someone else. Plus, you awaken negative states in you. If you wish poverty for someone, you start to, awaken poverty in you, and that might also be, reflected in your world. So these are 3 main rules, okay? Now, let's continue with that. So here's some side notes plus stories from Neville, okay? So I remember visiting my family in Barbados when I was told I could not leave the island for 7 months, but I wanted to leave on the next boat out. To me, being on that boat was my end. So again, Neville, was in Barbados, and he was told that he cannot leave it, but he wanted to leave. So what did he ask himself? Okay, what would imply to me that I already left Barbados? Well, what would imply that to me is that I'm already on the boat. So being on the boat was his end. So while sitting on a chair in my parents' home, I entered the boat in my imagination and viewed the island as I was departing. I did not know how I would get on it, but a week later, the boat left the island. When the boat left the island, I was there. This I know from experience. So how can we translate that? Neville placed himself internally in the end state. Neville placed himself internally in the end experience, saw the world from the end, from already being on the boat, and then he opened his eyes. And of course, he's still physically, his senses tell him that, okay, you are still, in this chair in your parents' home, but he already experienced being on the boat. He knew it from his experience that he was there. It is done. It happened. And then the bridge unfolded, and he actually ended up being there. Right? So first, the inner movement happened. Then the external world, in a reverberant way, echoed back where he stood within. I also got out of army that way. Right? Knowing I wanted to be honorably discharged, and in my apartment in New York, I slept as though I had already happened, and I was already there. So again, Neville was in the army, and he placed himself in his inner world as though he already is back home. Right? As though it already happened. Then my captain, who had previously disallowed my discharge, had a change of heart and aided in my release. Anyone can do it. This game is easy to play and can be lots of fun in the doing. So let's just summarize that right now. I invite you to ask yourself how you would feel if your desire was now fulfilled. I invite you, watching this video right now, how would you feel right now here with me watching this video if your desire would be now completely fulfilled? How would that feel? What would that mood be that would maybe in a very subtle way first, but that would start to arise? Capture that mood. Dwell on that mood. Toy with that thought. Right? Play with it a while and the mood will come up upon you. Keep that mood by playing with the senses it evokes and watch your world change to match your new mood. Right, so whatever you do, if you imagine a scene that implies you have achieved your goal, right? Like congratulations, hearing two people how they talk about you, eavesdropping, or I remember when, or isn't it wonderful, or just giving thanks for already having it right now because you know that creation is finished and everything that you can desire is already completely done. Or what would it be like? Capture that mood, right? What we want to do is really anchor ourselves in that state, in that mood of being in the end. So simply determine your goal, feel you have achieved it, and cast your bread upon water. Then drop it and let the game of life be fulfilled in your world. I really hope that this makes sense to you guys. Like, I make these videos not to entertain you, right? I make those videos so that you get the most value out of them as possible and really adopt that, understand that, internalize that, apply that, test it, play with it, and achieve goals with it, right? But this is the game of life. We all played. I played, right? I can't escape the game of life. I can't escape the rules. You played. Your parents, your friends, everyone. We are all together in this game of life. And our inner world determines what our outer subjective, world basically is reflecting us and how our world looks like. You're kind of the most horrible, let's just say, world when you dwell on all of these negative states, being unwanted, being this, being this, being this. And your world will have to confirm it, right? It has to confirm it. So therefore, it's not the enemy. And there is no enemy. But your world is not the enemy. Your circumstances are not the enemy. There is no opponent in the game of life. So understand that the game of life, like this first quote said, really amazing quote. The game of life is taking place within, right, on the playing field of the mind. So it needs to happen a renewal of the mind, a renewal of your inner world. If you need any help with that, feel free to check out the 2 resources in the video description and pinned comments. One is my free masterclass, where we also go over Neville's main principle, how to shift into the version of yourself that already has achieved the goal. Some pitfalls, some stumbling blocks, some successes, the opportunity to work with me, all of that is been explained in this free masterclass. And if you already watched that, or you don't want to watch that, and at some point in your journey, if it's right now, if it's in a month from now, if you feel you want help on that, you don't want to be alone on this journey, right? You just want to be with me, with over 200 like-minded people that also apply this, that also have the same mindset as you have, because they also learn about these principles, they also internalize them. And you want a structured system, you want one-on-one calls, you want weekly calls, you want, that closer connection, so that you just feel, in a safe environment. Then I invite you to book a call with me or my team, so that we can find out if we are a good fit. Right? And if we are a good fit and we tell you more about the program, you can decide if you want to do it. And if that's nothing for you, then there are no hard feelings involved, and you can just keep learning on YouTube and other resources. But that's my invitation for you if you want to take it to the next level. Thanks for watching. Let me know your feedbacks in the comments, and I speak to you in the next one. Bye, guys.